G'day Rockstars. Now, getting a big rock drum sound is always a challenge, but I'm going to show you a couple of tricks here with some, one of the most under the radar sample libraries I think on the market at the moment, and that would be Spitfire Audio's The Grange. Now, this was recorded at Grange in the UK, which is where Mick Fleetwood from Fleetwood Mac recorded, and Phil Collins from Genesis, and of course Led Zeppelin. Led Zeppelin got that massive Led Zepp drum sound right here. This is where it was invented. It's an old English manor, and they have this stairwell in the middle of this house, which is this tiny actually, but it goes up 3 flights of stairs, and it has this incredible reverberation. So Spitfire Audio went there 12 years ago now and recorded this sample library, and they used Chad Smith from the Red Hot Chili Peppers and Roger Taylor from Queen and Andy Gangadin, who's a session player, does like everything. And basically asked them to set the room up exactly how they would record for the most ultimate recording, right? And also play in a bunch of phrases and loops that they felt were applicable, and that's what they came up with, right? So this library is incredible. Not many people use it, which is wild. I mean, it is expensive. It's $250 US. However, I think you'll see how incredible flexible this is, and a fraction of the price of even getting Andy to come over and record your tracks for you, right? So this is great value. So let's dive in. So how I've got this set up is Contact running here, and you need a secondary drum machine, and I would highly recommend Toontrack's EzDrummer 2. Incredible. You can get the new one if you want, EzDrummer 3, but EzDrummer 2 is perfectly fine. And you need to set up the MIDI through in your DAW. So how it ordinarily works is whatever's on top, when you make a stack of libraries, like, the top one usually gets the MIDI and nothing gets sent through, right? So you need to set up for MIDI through, so the MIDI that you play in goes through all libraries. Now inside Reaper, this is done by clicking this little button at the top here, which is ordinarily your routing page. But if you right click on there, you'll see there's an option here saying MIDI output. And you want to choose merge with MIDI-Bus, which is another way of saying MIDI through. Okay, so that means everything you play in here will be sent down the line. So playing, let me turn the volume up. Playing this kit will also send the MIDI file, the MIDI information from my keyboard down to everything else, in this case Contact. You also need to set up the MIDI out. So click the menu here, then come to Settings, then General, and come over to MIDI Events, and make sure you enable MIDI out. What this will do is everything that Toontrack EzDrummer 2 plays will then also be sent out. Right, now let's just turn this down for a second and come over to Contact. Now, when you install the Grange, you're going to be presented with a bunch of libraries here, right? So there's 2 ways of using this kit, either as a sample player, which we're doing now, or as a loop player. I'll show you in a second. So to set up as a sample player, you need to choose two types of kit. So the first one here is we'll go into the kit mics, and we'll choose mapped, which means it's MIDI mapped to your keyboard, and you've got a whole bunch of kits to choose from, right? So let's choose Roger Taylor Performance Hi-Hat kit. Now you're going to be presented with this drum kit, which sounds like that. Now what we're looking at here is, if you look down in the corner here, you're going to see these 4 sliders, right? And the one with snare is enabled. So we need to enable all of these, right? So it's just snare at the moment, the snare mic. So if we bring the kick mic in, there's the kick, and we bring in the hi-hats and then the toms. Okay, so this is a full tight recording, no overheads or anything like that, right? Great. So first thing to check is make sure we're on MIDI channel Omni, because I want this all to be played at the same time. So we're just going to minimize that. So this is our tight kit, so to speak. I'll just minimize that. Now in the map kits, let's exit back out again, come back to the beginning, and now we want to go to the instrument mixes. Now these mixes, again map kit, and choose the same kit that we chose before. These mixes are the mics, which is this incredible big sound, right? So make sure you change the MIDI channel to Omni, so it all plays. And I'm just going to solo this just so we can hear just the mics. This is the room mics, right? So again, we have 3 microphones choices to choose from here. We've got tight, Actually, sorry, that's very quiet. Let me just turn it up just a bit. Just realised. There we go, that's a bit better. Okay, so tight mics. Now this room they record in it's actually very small, so that the room mics are quite close to the actual kit. It's basically overheads. But there's also, they put them in the doorways and stuff and everywhere, so that's that sound. And then you've got the medium. This is up the first staircase, I believe, and down the hallway a wee bit. Quite nice. And then epic. This is up on the third level and way down the hall, so it's the biggest sound that comes out of it. Pretty cool. So let me just unsolo this. I'm going to leave those epics going. So we've got the epics now and the tight kit. Alright, so the tight kit and the mics both together. You can bring on all these mics if you want. I often do this. Just watch the volume. Something like that. You know, kind of come up with a nice, whatever kind of suits you, the style you're going for, right? So there we go. This would be ordinarily how you'd use this library. It doesn't present you any, you don't get any MIDI tools and like that. You basically got to play it in by hand or program it in. However, we're going to go way beyond that today and look at using Toontracks to do all that kind of hard work for us. So now if I come back over to Toontracks here, I'm just going to turn off, yes, I'm just going to turn off Contact in the meantime and just concentrate on EzDrummer here. Okay, so what I'd recommend, if you have the expansion kits, try to swap out the default one for something a bit more in keeping. I find the Vintage Rock kit is pretty good. It's a similar sound to the Grange kit. Right, it doesn't really matter because I'm not going to really use these sounds, but just, you know, if you want to keep it in the same kind of ballpark. Maybe you don't. Maybe you want to go for something really wacky, and that's super cool as well. Now, so just to show you how this basically works, I'm just going to turn the volume, right? So we're not using Toontracks volume whatsoever, right? I'll bring back in Contact. And now, since we set the MIDI out on this, if we play any of these tracks inside the MIDI collection here, they'll actually play the Grange, right? Okay, so this is Toontracks playing the Grange. Cool, right? Why are we so fast? Let me just bring my tempo back a touch. 120, try that. So now we can come back into Contact here and just kind of get a better mix. So it kicks obviously quite prominent. Let's bring that back a touch. Maybe you want like a bit more of a rock kind of room in there. Yeah, something like that, right? So you can see the gist of this. So now within Toontracks, if you're familiar with how this works, you can build your tracks up, you can change all your MIDI, you can drag this into your DAW, you can do all that kind of stuff, right? So you get the benefit of the MIDI tools here playing through Roger Taylor's kit and the Grange, which is fantastic. Now, just stepping this up one bit further, let me just disable the Contact in the meantime. I'm also going to bring in some of EzDrummer. Now, right, there's an obvious difference between this sound and the Grange. So I don't want to completely destroy the Grange with this sound. I mean, it's fine, but I just want to use some elements of it. Right, so if I come over to the mixer here, I might just, for instance, I quite like using the hi-hat. So I'm just going to solo the hi-hat. Right, so that's just a hi-hat playing. Now let's bring back in the Grange. And you can see here, I can just fade in hi-hat. Just a little bit, that's quite nice. Maybe like, I quite like snare bottom, it's quite nice. I'll just solo that. Maybe in there a And I also quite like using the overheads just to widen it out a bit. So remember, these overhead signals here are from the Toontrack samples, not the Grange, right? So they're different drums. So you just have to be careful of that, but just a little bit, just to give it a bit of width. It's quite nice, and then you can bring the entire level back. You know, and you can do basically anything you like. Let me just stop that for a second. So let's say you don't like the kick, for instance, inside the Grange. So let's just kind of get rid of the kick completely. Turn off the kick mics. And I'll use the kick out of EzDrummer here. But, so I don't like that drum. I can easily just swap that out in here and choose something else. So anything we like. Let's say we're going for, let's say an EDM kind of sound, right? So let's bring in a 909. Yeah, 909 kick. Oof. So that's a real dancey sound, if that's what you're going for, right? Let's just play that loop again. Get the gist of what's happening, right? So you can basically, of course, use all the MIDI tools, your DAW to sequence and enhance the sound as you need by using some of the elements of EzDrummer. Really flexible. Now, the other alternative with the Grange is it has a fantastic collection of loops. Let me just minimize all this. I'm just going to mute YouTube. And inside the Grange here, let's start again at the very beginning. This time we want to go into the Easy Tweak directory, and then you're going to see loops, and choose your drummer, say Roger Taylor, and you're going to get 2 loop folders to choose from. So we'll just choose this one here and make sure that the MIDI channel is again set to Omni, and you can now play loops. Let me just turn off to the drums. Okay, so we're presented with the same options. We've got tight, ground mics, floor 1 and floor 2. Okay, so now we also need to bring in the tight kit, so let's kind of exit out of this again, exit out, and we'll come down to the mixes. Inside the mixes, you'll see loops again, so Roger, and now choose the same loops that you chose before. So loop 1, bring that one in, and make sure the MIDI channel is set to Omni. So now we're playing, let me just solo this. This is the kit, so we've got medium kit, we've got tight kit, and epic kit. Very cool, and then we'll add the room back in. Right, so again, this is loops. This is actually Roger Taylor playing. And the keyboard loops range from quite simple up to quite complicated. So the higher you go on your keyboard, the more complicated they are. And then each of these banks includes just tons and tons of loops. They're all time synced to the number here. So this is 135 BPM. So you ideally want to match your DAW to these tempos, otherwise they're going to sound a little bit kind of squelched. So let me just change my DAW to 135. So now if you click on the little spanner here, I'll do it on both these here, you can see there's an option here to sync to tempo. And if you do that, which I recommend you do, it'll follow your DAW's tempo. So if we change my DAW tempo to 100. Okay, so it will go, but you see it sounds a little bit squelched. Yeah, so you don't really want to go too far. You want to ideally stick pretty close to the recorded time, 135 in this case. All right, so there's a million loops here. So as you do with loops, you go through and you find the loops that work for your track, just record in the MIDI notes, and that's happy days. Now the trick is to overlay these loops with your own playing. So let me just show you how I've done that. I'm just going to mute these loops here and open up that. So I'm back to this is just the sample library now, tracks, and I've pre-recorded in the background one of these loops. I'm just going to have it running. Okay, so this is Roger Taylor, just like a cool tom roll. Now, I found that in fact, none of the loops work particularly well with MIDI loops from inside Toontracks, because they're just so, you know, a human player, it sounds completely, not out of time, but it kind of phases quite a lot with the very tight quantized computers MIDI files from inside Toontracks. So you might get better luck than I do, but I found it was very tough to match them up. So basically, just use loops by themselves, right? But you want to play over the top of the loops your own input, like your own kind of embellishments, right? So because over the course of a track, you're going to tell that they're loops, right? If they're just like the one thing over and over again, right? So if you add over the top any kind of playing, it is the same kit and recorded in the same environment, right? Except I'm playing it this time. So we can have Roger playing here, and then I'll just add my own stuff on top, right? And it seems like Roger player's going to badly wing it. Etc., etc. You're going to get where I'm going with that. I'm like a terrible keyboard drummer. But you've got massive flexibility here. So if you want to go the route of using the Toontracks as the master sequencer, so to speak, so you've got MIDI drums and you can do DAW programming and stuff, that's certainly fine, and it's going to sound somewhat robotic, but depends on how good you are at programming. You know, nothing wrong with Toontracks, but the ultimate way, you use these loops and then just embellish them with your own playing. You're going to have literally Roger Taylor or Chad Smith playing on your track, right? You can't get any better than that, and you've got all the flexibility of being able to enhance the mix and bring in your own kind of embellishments for your drum machine of choice. So there we go. Hope that's something for you to kind of think over if you're trying to get that big rock sound. Particularly, I mean, it's obviously, you know, for rock music would be the ideal place to use it, but I use this often inside orchestral arrangements. When I'm looking for this kind of vintagey kind of huge sound, there's nothing else like it. So anyway, I hope you can get something from this video today, and thanks for joining in. We'll see you on the next video. Okay, catch you guys later.